Hello.
I thought my marriage was perfect until I connected my wife's phone to our car's Bluetooth. The message that flashed on the screen made my blood freeze. I can still taste you from this morning. It wasn't from me. Now I'm planning something for our anniversary that will change both our lives forever. The perfect writer knows how to craft an unforgettable ending, even to his own marriage. My name is Wade Hicks. I'm 36 years old, and until 6 months ago, I thought I had it all figured out. I'm a writer, mostly thriller novels with the occasional foray into historical fiction. Nothing that'll get me on the bestseller lists, but enough that I can work from home and pay the bills. I've always valued my independence, the freedom to set my own schedule, brew coffee at 2 a.m. if inspiration hits. When I met Yvonne at a publishing party in Chicago 5 years ago, I wasn't looking for anything serious. She was standing by the hors d'oeuvres table, looking slightly out of place in a room full of literary types. Her dark hair was pulled back, and she had this infectious laugh that caught my attention from across the room. Not a fan of these pretentious industry parties either. I asked, grabbing a glass of champagne. That obvious, huh? She smiled. I'm only here because my roommate's dating one of the editors. We spent the rest of the night in the corner, talking about everything except books. Yvonne worked as a key account manager for a tech firm, dealing with high-profile clients and corporate negotiations. About as far from my world of fictional characters and plot twists as you could get. What started as casual dating turned serious faster than I expected. Yvonne was organized where I was chaotic, practical where I was idealistic. We balanced each other. After a year, we moved in together, and 6 months later, I proposed during a weekend trip to Lake Michigan. The wedding was small, but perfect. Standing there watching her walk down the aisle, I remember thinking I was the luckiest guy alive. We settled into a comfortable routine. I'd write during the day while she was at the office. Then we'd have evenings together. Weekends were sacred. No work, just us exploring local trails, trying new restaurants, or binge-watching shows. 2 years in, things started shifting. Yvonne's company brought in a new senior VP of sales, Vincent Reynolds. Suddenly, her hours got longer. Big client, she'd say. Important pitch meeting became her mantra. I didn't think much of it. Her career was important to her, and I respected that. Then came the business trips. First Chicago, then Denver, then a week-long conference in Phoenix. She'd call every night, telling me about the meetings, the clients, how exhausted she was. I'd tell her about the progress on my latest manuscript, what new recipe I tried for dinner. "I miss you," she'd say before hanging up. And like an idiot, I believed her. Looking back, I should have seen the signs. The way she'd guard her phone, how she'd mention Vincent in every other sentence, then suddenly stopped referencing him altogether. The new clothes, the different perfume. Classic signs, right? But when you're in it, when you trust someone completely, your brain makes excuses. You rationalize. Our third anniversary was approaching, and I wanted to make it special. I spent weeks planning. Reservations at the restaurant where we had our first official date. A weekend getaway to a cabin in the mountains. I even started writing her a special story, featuring characters based on us. Little did I know, I was about to become the protagonist in a very different kind of story. The early days with Yvonne were like something from a movie, the kind where everything just clicks. We'd spend Sundays at the farmer's market near Riverdale Park, her picking fresh produce while I sampled every artisanal cheese in sight. Evenings often found us on my apartment balcony, sharing a bottle of wine as the sun set over the city skyline. Life felt right. 6 months in, Yvonne opened up about her past. We were at the lake house her family owned in Michigan, sprawled on a worn dock under a blanket of stars. "My ex-fiancé cheated with my bridesmaid," she said, voice barely audible over the lapping water. "I found out a week before the wedding. I took her hand, feeling her pain as if it were my own. That's why I have trust issues," she continued. "Why I'm so guarded sometimes." I promised her then, a promise I meant with every fiber of my being, that I would never hurt her that way. The irony of that conversation haunts me still. When I told Yvonne about my own baggage, a father who criticized everything I did, who called my writing a hobby, not a career, she became my fiercest defender. "Your father doesn't see your talent because he's too concerned with what others think," she'd say. Her belief in me was intoxicating. Our first major test came when Yvonne received a job offer in Seattle. A significant promotion, That would mean relocating across the country. I had just signed with a new publisher, had commitments in Boston. I can write anywhere. I told her when she looked ready to decline the offer. Your career matters too. She turned it down anyway. We're building something here, she said. Something real. I proposed 3 weeks later at Lighthouse Point. Not because I felt obligated after her sacrifice, but because I couldn't imagine life without her steady presence. The small vintage ring, a sapphire surrounded by tiny diamonds, wasn't flashy, but her eyes filled with tears when I slid it onto her finger. Our wedding was intimate. 50 guests in a converted boathouse on the harbor. Yvonne wore a simple white dress that made her look ethereal. My best friend Rick served as best man, giving a speech that had everyone alternating between laughter and tears. You two complement each other perfectly, he said, raising his glass. Wade gives Yvonne's life color. Yvonne gives Wade's life structure. During our first dance to Beyond by Leon Bridges, Yvonne whispered in my ear, "This is the happiest I've ever been." I believed her. I believed in us. For our honeymoon, we chose a remote cabin in Vermont. No Wi-Fi, spotty cell service, just us in nature for 2 weeks. We hiked during the day and made love by the fireplace at night. We talked about everything, our childhood dreams, our future home, even what we'd name our kids someday. It was perfect. But perfection, I've learned, is often an illusion, a fragile veneer covering deeper truths. Marriage changed less than I expected. We already lived together, already shared a life. The gold band on my finger was just a physical reminder of what I already knew. Yvonne was my person, and I was hers. We settled into a comfortable routine. Mornings began with coffee, strong black for me, oat milk latte for her. I'd work in my home office while Yvonne headed to her company's downtown headquarters. Evenings were ours, cooking together, watching documentaries, planning weekend outings. The beauty of working from home meant I could surprise her. On rough days, I'd have dinner ready when she walked through the door, candles lit, wine breathing. The way her face would soften, tension melting away, made every effort worthwhile. "You're too good to me," she'd say, kicking off her heels. "Just good enough," I'd correct her. We weren't perfect. Who is? We bickered about dishwasher loading techniques and thermostat settings. She thought my organizational system for research materials was barely controlled chaos. I teased her about color-coding her closet, but our disagreements never festered. We didn't go to bed angry. For our first anniversary, I planned a weekend at a historic bed and breakfast in Vermont where the fall foliage painted the landscape in fiery hues. We hiked mountain trails during the day and curled up by the fireplace at night. I gifted her a first-edition copy of her favorite childhood book, a treasure I'd spent months tracking down. "How do you always know exactly what will mean the most?" she asked, eyes glistening as she traced the worn cover. Our discussions about the future grew more concrete. We started saving for a house, something with character in a neighborhood with good schools. The kids' conversation happened naturally as we watched our friends start families. "I think I'd like to be a father," I said one Sunday morning as we watched our nephew building sandcastles at the beach. Yvonne squeezed my hand. "You'd be an amazing dad." Then came Yvonne's promotion. Key account director. More responsibility, more travel, more stress. Vincent Reynolds, the new VP of sales, personally selected her for the role. "He says I have the perfect balance of relationship building and analytical thinking," she said the night she accepted the position, cheeks flushed with excitement. I was genuinely happy for her. Why wouldn't I be? Her success was our success. The first business trip lasted 3 days. I drove her to the airport, kissed her goodbye, and felt oddly bereft watching her disappear through security. That night, our apartment seemed too quiet, too empty. We video called until she fell asleep, her hotel room visible in the background. I never imagined that hotel rooms would soon feature prominently in the unraveling of everything we'd built. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, things shifted between us. The changes were subtle at first. Yvonne working later, weekend calls with clients, urgent emails during dinner. I adapted without complaint. My flexible schedule made it easy to accommodate her increasingly demanding career. "Sorry about this," she'd say, stepping away from movie night to take a call. "Vincent needs these numbers before tomorrow's presentation." Vincent. The name began appearing in our conversations with growing frequency. Vincent thought her client approach was innovative. Vincent was implementing her suggestion company-wide. Vincent had selected her for the leadership development program. I was pleased for her success, but occasionally felt a twinge of something. Not jealousy exactly, more like unease, about her obvious admiration for her boss. "He sounded impressive," I commented one evening. "He's transformed the entire sales approach," she replied, eyes brightening. "You should see how he handles difficult clients, so confident, never flustered." Our anniversary fell during a busy sales quarter. Yvonne apologized profusely when she couldn't get away for the weekend trip I'd planned. "Rain check," she suggested, genuine regret in her expression. "Vincent's got us pitching to potential investors all weekend." I hid my disappointment behind understanding. Of course, work comes first sometimes. Instead of the romantic getaway, we celebrated with a late dinner when she returned Sunday night, exhausted but exhilarated from a successful presentation. I gave her the handcrafted silver bracelet I'd selected months earlier. She seemed genuinely touched, kissing me deeply, but checked her phone 3 times during our meal. That night, as she slept beside me, I noticed her phone repeatedly lighting up with notifications. I hadn't meant to look, but the name caught my eye, Vincent. Multiple messages, past midnight. I turned away, telling myself it was innocent, just work, just business. Our physical relationship began changing too. Yvonne was often too tired, or not in the mood. When we did connect intimately, something felt different, mechanical almost, as though she was going through motions rather than being present. One Saturday morning, I suggested brunch at our favorite waterfront restaurant. "Actually," she said, not quite meeting my eyes, "I need to go into the office for a few hours. Quarterly reports are due Monday. I'll drive you," I offered impulsively. "Then maybe we could grab lunch afterward." "No," she answered too quickly. "I mean, don't trouble yourself. I might be there all day." That evening, when I casually asked how the reports were coming along, she looked momentarily confused before recovering. "Oh, good, yes. Nearly finished." It was the first time I caught her in a direct lie. I've never been the jealous type. Trust was the foundation of our relationship. I believed in it completely. But there comes a point when ignoring red flags becomes willful blindness. Yvonne's company announced a team-building retreat in the Catskills. 3 days of strategic planning and networking. She explained while packing significantly more evening wear than seemed necessary for corporate brainstorming sessions. "Vincent says these informal settings are where the real business happens," she added, carefully selecting perfume bottles. My writer's instincts were screaming. The narrative wasn't adding up. That weekend, I threw myself into my manuscript, working 16-hour days to meet my deadline. The physical exertion of focusing so intensely kept darker thoughts at bay. Sunday evening, I finished the final chapter at 2 a.m., exhausted but satisfied. My reward was a rare whiskey I'd been saving. Sitting on our balcony under a clear night sky, I scrolled through social media mindlessly. That's when I saw it. A colleague of Yvonne's had posted photos from the retreat. My finger froze over an image of a group dinner. Yvonne sat beside Vincent, his arm casually draped across the back of her chair, their heads tilted toward each other, laughing at some private joke. Chemistry was practically visible between them. I zoomed in, studying Vincent's face, distinguished, confident, probably mid-40s. The kind of man who commanded rooms simply by entering them. The jealousy I denied finally surfaced, burning in my chest. When Yvonne returned Monday evening, I was waiting with a home-cooked meal and a casual question. "How was the retreat?" "Productive but exhausting," she replied, avoiding specifics. "I saw some photos online," I said evenly. "Looked like you were enjoying yourself." Her pause was barely perceptible. "It was fine. Typical corporate stuff." That night, I lay awake beside her, mentally cataloging changes over recent months. The new lingerie she wore to feel professional. The late-night showers immediately upon returning home. The sudden password on her phone. All classic signs I'd written into my own fiction, yet somehow missed in my life. The next morning, I made a decision. Rather than confront her with suspicions, I'd gather information. Not out of cowardice, but strategy. If something was happening, I needed evidence, for her, for me, for whatever came next. I installed a tracking app on our shared iPad that would back up text message notifications. I wasn't proud of it, But desperate times demanded decisive action. A man protects what's his, even if that means protecting himself from the person he loves. Meanwhile, I maintained normalcy. I celebrated her successes at work, listened attentively to her stories, never revealing my growing vigilance. If she noticed any change in me, she gave no indication. The shared calendar alert came Thursday afternoon, a client dinner scheduled for Saturday. I decided to verify independently. Sometimes a man has to trust his gut and take matters into his own hands. Is the Wilson account dinner still on for Saturday? I asked casually that evening, referencing a client she'd mentioned previously. Yvonne's expression flickered momentarily. No, that's next week. This Saturday is the Berkshire presentation review with Vincent. The lie rolled off her tongue with practiced ease. Game on. Saturday evening arrived. Yvonne dressed carefully, a new black dress I hadn't seen before, higher heels than she typically wore for work functions, subtle but distinctive perfume. Don't wait up, she said, kissing my cheek. These presentation reviews can run late. I watched from the window as she climbed into her car and drove away. Then I changed into dark jeans and a black Henley, grabbed my car keys, and followed at a discreet distance. My military father had taught me basic surveillance techniques during childhood, training exercises he considered character building. Never thought I'd use them to track my own wife. She drove directly to the Westfield Hotel downtown, definitely not the corporate office where a legitimate review would take place. I parked across the street, watching as she bypassed the lobby, heading straight to the elevators with practiced familiarity. I settled in my veins. I sat motionless, processing what this meant. Part of me wanted to storm in, confront them both, create a scene worthy of the soap operas Yvonne occasionally watched. The wiser part knew that emotional outbursts wouldn't serve me now. I drove home, oddly calm. The certainty of betrayal was almost easier than suspicion's torment. I poured myself 2 fingers of bourbon and fired up my laptop, organizing digital evidence I'd gathered, text message logs, photos, calendar discrepancies, into a comprehensive file. Then I researched divorce attorneys, comparing reviews and specialties. By midnight, I had a short list of the city's most aggressive representation. The next morning, I contacted a private investigator, a former detective who specialized in matrimonial cases. His retainer wasn't cheap, but documentation from a professional would prove invaluable if Yvonne contested the divorce. We met at a diner across town, where I laid out what I knew. Standard case, he said after reviewing my evidence. I'll have definitive proof within a week. While waiting for his report, I focused on practical matters. I cataloged our assets, documented our financial accounts, secured copies of important records. I moved my upcoming royalty payment to a new account in only my name. Not hiding assets, just ensuring protection while I strategized. I maintained a perfect facade at home. I laughed at her stories, inquired about her day, performed the role of unsuspecting husband flawlessly. If I seemed distracted, I blamed it on approaching deadlines. Yvonne, lost in her own deception, noticed nothing amiss. In quiet moments, grief ambushed me. Memories of better times, the future we'd planned together, now tarnished by betrayal. But I refused to wallow. My father always said, "You can't control what happens, only how you respond." I would respond with dignity and strength. The PI called Thursday with confirmation, photos of Yvonne and Vincent entering the same hotel room, time-stamped evidence of their 3-hour stay. The final nail in the coffin of my marriage. I made an appointment with the toughest divorce attorney on my list for the following week, after our anniversary. Poetic timing, perhaps. Before then, I had something special planned, a farewell gesture worthy of the love I'd once believed in. Our 3rd anniversary fell on a Tuesday. Yvonne had mentioned casually that she'd try to get home at a reasonable hour, but I knew better than to expect much. The woman sharing my home wasn't the same one I'd married. I took the day off, ostensibly to meet a deadline. In reality, I executed the first phase of my plan. I drove to the bank and withdrew cash for expenses that would arise during the separation. I backed up all important documents to a secure cloud server and changed my individual account passwords. I contacted my publisher to redirect future royalty payments. These practical steps kept me focused, preventing emotions from overwhelming me. A man handles business first, falls apart later, if at all. That afternoon, I purchased items for my anniversary gift. A single perfect rose from the florist where I'd bought her wedding bouquet, premium chocolates from the artisan shop we discovered during our first vacation, letterpress stationery from the boutique she loved. The cashier smiled, commenting on what a lucky woman my wife was. Anniversary, she asked, wrapping the chocolate box in silver paper. Something like that, I replied. Back home, I sat at my desk, staring at the blank stationery. How do you distill 3 years of marriage and its destruction into words? I started writing, crumpled the page, started again. Eventually, the right words came, not heated accusations or bitter recriminations, but simple, devastating truth. I carefully placed the letter, chocolates, and my wedding ring on the kitchen counter. The rose I positioned beside them, a symbol not of love now, but of what had died. The scene looked exactly as I'd imagined it, a visual representation of the end. Next, I packed essentials into a single duffel bag. Enough clothes for a week, basic toiletries, my laptop, and important documents. I'd planned temporary accommodations at a buddy's lakeside cabin where I could regroup before finding a permanent place. I took one final walk through our apartment, memories rising unbidden. Yvonne laughing as we assembled furniture. Lazy Sunday mornings reading sections of a newspaper to each other. The Christmas we'd stayed up all night, wrapping gifts for our nieces and nephews. I allowed myself a moment of grief for what could have been. Then I straightened my shoulders, picked up my bag, and walked out without looking back. No dramatic scene, no tearful confrontation, just the quiet dignity of a man who knows his worth. I drove to the cabin, windows down, radio loud, a strange mixture of devastation and freedom coursing through me. The setting sun cast long shadows across the road, a fitting metaphor for this twilight moment between marriage and whatever came next. My phone buzzed repeatedly with Yvonne's calls once she discovered my departure gift. I silenced it without answering. Her moment for talking had long passed. The first 24 hours after leaving were surreal. I woke at dawn in the unfamiliar cabin, momentarily disoriented before reality crashed back. My phone showed 27 missed calls from Yvonne, 15 voicemails, and a flood of texts ranging from confused, "Where are you?" to angry, "How could you just leave?" to desperate, "Please just talk to me." I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I called my attorney, confirming our appointment for Friday. Then I contacted my agent about upcoming book commitments that might need rescheduling. Practical matters kept emotional chaos at bay. By mid-morning, Yvonne had mobilized our friends. My phone lit up with concerned messages from Rick, Sam, even Yvonne's sister Melissa. I sent brief, factual responses. "I'm safe. Need time to process things. We'll reach out when ready." I spent the day hiking forest trails surrounding the cabin, physical exertion clearing my mind. The crisp autumn air filled my lungs, reminding me I was still alive, still moving forward despite everything. That evening, Yvonne's tactics changed. A particularly gut-wrenching voicemail arrived, her voice broken, sobbing about how she made a terrible mistake and would do anything to fix this. I listened once, then deleted it. Tears weren't evidence of remorse, just the natural consequence of being caught. I poured a whiskey and sat on the cabin's porch, watching darkness settle over the lake. An unexpected calm had replaced the initial shock, the calm of a man who had faced his worst fear and survived. Wednesday brought a new development. Rick called, his tone unusually hesitant. "Yvonne came by my place last night," he said. "She's a mess, man. Says she doesn't understand why you left." "Did she mention Vincent?" I asked evenly. Rick's pause told me everything. She said it was just a work thing that got out of hand. One mistake she'd give anything to take back. I laughed without humor. Asked her how many times one mistake happened. Ask about the hotel last Saturday. "Shit," Rick breathed. "That's serious. I have photos, Rick. Documentation. It's been going on for months." After hanging up, I forwarded select evidence to Rick, not out of vindictiveness, but to end any doubt. Within hours, the tone of friends' messages shifted from, "You guys need to talk," to expressions of support for me. Thursday afternoon, as I worked on my laptop at the cabin's rough-hewn table, a text from Melissa arrived. "She's looking for you. Thinks you're at the cabin. Just a heads up." I grabbed my keys immediately. I wasn't ready for a confrontation, not without my attorney present. As I threw essentials into my bag, A vehicle approached on a gravel driveway. Through the window, I recognized Yvonne's car. I had seconds to decide. Face her now, unprepared, or leave through the rear hiking trail that connected to the main road quarter-mile away. A strategic retreat wasn't cowardice. It was tactical advantage. Grabbing my laptop and bag, I slipped out the back door just as knocking started at the front. The forest shadows concealed my departure as I hiked quickly through familiar terrain. Sometimes the strongest move a man can make is knowing when to engage on his own terms. After evading Yvonne at the cabin, I checked into a hotel under a pseudonym, a trick I'd learned researching my last thriller novel. I needed space to prepare for the inevitable confrontation on my terms. Friday morning, I met with my attorney, Malcolm Reynolds, a no-nonsense former JAG officer who specialized in high-conflict divorces. The evidence is substantial, he confirmed, reviewing the PI's report. We're filing for divorce, citing adultery. Given Massachusetts law, her infidelity may impact property division and alimony considerations. That afternoon, my phone rang, an unknown number. Something told me to answer. Wade, Vincent Reynolds' voice, smooth and controlled. We should talk man to man. My grip tightened on the phone. Nothing to discuss. Yvonne made a mistake. She's devastated. I'm stepping back completely. Stepping back. I laughed incredulously. You've been sleeping with my wife for months. This wasn't some drunken office party mistake. It's complicated. Actually, it's remarkably simple. I interrupted. You both made choices. Now you both face consequences. Any further communication goes through my attorney. I hung up, blocking the number immediately. The audacity of the man, thinking we could have some gentlemanly chat about his affair with my wife. Saturday morning, legal papers were served to Yvonne at our apartment. By afternoon, her sister Melissa called. She's a wreck, Wade. I've never seen her like this. Not my problem anymore. I replied evenly. She wants to meet. Just to talk. No lawyers. No drama. Don't you think you owe her that much? I considered refusing, but facing Yvonne directly would provide closure. Monday. The coffee shop on Highland Street. 2 o'clock. Just her. If Vincent shows up, I'm gone. Monday arrived clear and cold. I arrived early, choosing a table with clear sight lines to both exits, a strategic habit ingrained by my father's military training. Yvonne entered looking uncharacteristically disheveled, eyes hollow, complexion pale. She slid into the seat across from me, hands trembling slightly around her coffee cup. Thank you for coming, she began. Say what you need to say. I replied, keeping my tone neutral. I made a terrible mistake. The worst of my life. Her voice cracked. It didn't mean anything. Spare me. I cut in. If it meant nothing, why risk everything? Why lie repeatedly? Why continue for months? Tears spilled down her cheeks. I don't know. I got caught up in the attention, the excitement. Vincent made me feel. Stop. I raised my hand. I didn't come to hear about your feelings for him. What can I do? She pleaded. How can I fix this? I looked at her, really looked at the woman I'd once built my life around, and felt nothing but calm certainty. You can't, I said simply. Some things, once broken, stay broken. 6 months after that final coffee shop conversation, my divorce was finalized. Massachusetts isn't known for speedy divorce proceedings, but Malcolm had expedited the process masterfully. The evidence of Yvonne's infidelity proved instrumental in negotiations, resulting in a settlement strongly in my favor. I sold the apartment, splitting the proceeds according to the agreement, and purchased a small waterfront cottage an hour outside Boston, close enough to maintain professional connections, far enough for a fresh start. The quiet location provided perfect writing conditions, and I finished my latest manuscript 2 months ahead of schedule. Rick helped me move, along with a few loyal friends who'd stood by me throughout the ordeal. Place suits you, Rick commented as we unloaded the final boxes. More you than that modern apartment ever was. He wasn't wrong. The cottage, with its weathered cedar shingles and wide porch overlooking the bay, reflected the authentic life I was building. One based on my preferences, not compromises. Yvonne had attempted contact several times after a coffee shop meeting. Texts, emails, even a handwritten letter delivered to my publisher. Each time, I maintained firm boundaries. Eventually, the attempt stopped. Through mutual acquaintances, I learned she transferred her company's Seattle office. Vincent, apparently, remained in Boston. Whatever had existed between them hadn't survived the destruction of my marriage. My father called one evening as I sat on the porch watching the sunset. Our relationship had strengthened during my divorce, his military perspective on loyalty and honor resonating with my experience. "You know what I always respected about you, Wade?" he said unexpectedly. "Your resilience. You face difficulty head-on, adapt, and emerge stronger. Not all men can do that." Coming from him, this was monumental praise. My writing took a new direction, deeper, more authentic, drawing on experiences of betrayal and recovery. My agent called the new manuscript career-defining, and early reviews suggested readers agreed. Dating hadn't been a priority during this rebuilding period, but I wasn't closed to possibilities. A writer's workshop introduced me to Elaine, a literature professor with quick wit and zero drama. Our coffee meetings evolved into hiking excursions and long conversations about everything except my past marriage. She didn't need to know those details yet, perhaps someday, if things progressed. 1 year to the day after discovering Yvonne's betrayal, I stood on my porch watching waves crash against the shore. The pain had transformed into something different, not forgotten, but integrated into my story without defining it. Trust is like glass, I'd once thought, but I'd learned a different truth. Trust isn't glass. It's a muscle that, once injured, can heal stronger than before, if you're willing to do the work. And I was.
Bye.